London.
One of the most powerful cities on earth, a city of kings, empire, money, and history. But 2,000 years ago, London did not exist. Where towering skyscrapers now dominate the skyline, there was only wilderness. A cold, marshy river valley, untouched by any great city. The land was silent, untamed, empty. Then, in 43 AD, everything changed. The Roman Empire invaded Britain with 40,000 soldiers. Their mission was simple: conquer the island and control it forever. A few years later, Roman engineers discovered the perfect location along the River Thames. The river was narrow enough to bridge, yet deep enough for trade ships to arrive from across the empire. Around this crossing, a new settlement was born. The Romans called it Londinium, a growing frontier town built on commerce, ambition, and imperial power. But its rise would not last long. In 60 AD, a rebellion led by Queen Boudicca swept across Roman Britain. Londinium was left undefended, and within days, the entire city was consumed by fire. The first chapter of London ended in ash. Chapter 1. Rome invades Britain. The story begins in the year 43 AD. At this time, the Roman Empire controlled vast territories stretching from Spain to Syria. It was the greatest superpower of the ancient world. But its emperor, Claudius, faced a problem. He had come to power through political chaos and assassination. Many Romans viewed him as weak. Others believed he had no right to rule at all. Claudius needed legitimacy, and in Rome, military victory meant power. So he turned his attention toward Britain. Britain already existed in Roman imagination as a mysterious island at the edge of the known world. Roman writers described it as cold, tribal, and dangerous. Julius Caesar himself had launched expeditions there nearly a century earlier, but Rome had never fully conquered the island. Claudius intended to finish what Caesar started, and so, in 43 AD, Rome launched a full-scale invasion. Nearly 40,000 men crossed the English Channel. Legionaries in iron armor marched beside cavalry, engineers, archers, and auxiliary troops recruited from across the empire. For the native Britons, the arrival of Rome must have seemed overwhelming. The Roman army was unlike anything most tribes had ever encountered. Disciplined, professional, relentless. The invaders slowly fought their way inland, defeating tribal coalitions and securing southeastern Britain. Soon, Rome established its first major provincial centre at Camulodunum, modern-day Colchester. It became a symbol of Roman authority in Britain, but conquest alone was not enough. An empire could not survive without infrastructure. Rome needed roads, supply lines, ports, trade networks, administrative centres. The Romans understood something few ancient civilizations mastered as effectively. If you controlled movement, you controlled power. And to truly dominate Britain, Rome needed a new city. Chapter 2. Why the Romans chose London. The Romans searched carefully for the ideal location. Eventually, their attention focused on a strategic point along the River Thames. At first glance, it did not look impressive. There were no enormous hills, no natural stone defences, no ancient settlement already waiting to be occupied. But the location possessed something far more valuable: geography. At this point, the Thames narrowed enough for a bridge to be constructed. This mattered enormously. The bridge connected major Roman roads moving north and south across Britain. It also linked inland territories directly to the sea. Ships could travel upriver carrying supplies, goods, and soldiers from across the empire. For Roman planners, it was perfect. Sometime between 47 and 50 AD, Roman engineers arrived and began construction. First came the bridge itself. Most likely built from timber, it represented an extraordinary feat of engineering for its time. Then roads appeared, docks followed, warehouses rose beside the riverbanks, and slowly a settlement began to grow around the crossing. The Romans called it Londinium. Nobody knows the exact origin of the name. Some historians believe it came from an older Celtic word already used in the region. Others think it may have referred to the river itself. But whatever its origin, the name survived. And from the beginning, Londinium was different from many Roman settlements. It was not primarily a military fortress. It was a commercial city. Trade became the lifeblood of early London. Merchant ships arrived carrying wine from Gaul, olive oil from Spain, glassware from the Rhineland, and luxury pottery from across the empire. In return, Britain exported grain, wool, hunting dogs, metals, and enslaved people. Money flowed into the settlement rapidly, and with wealth came growth. Timber houses lined muddy streets, workshops crowded near the docks, merchants from distant provinces mixed with native Britons. Latin voices echoed beside Celtic languages. Londinium became one of the busiest trading settlements in Roman Britain almost overnight. But despite its growing prosperity, the city possessed one fatal weakness. It had no walls, no fortifications protected its people. And soon, that vulnerability would bring catastrophe. Chapter 3. The Rise of Boudicca. In 60 AD, the fragile peace between Rome and the native tribes shattered. To understand why, we need to look east toward the Iceni tribe. The Iceni ruled a large territory in what is now eastern England. Their king, Prasutagus, had maintained a cooperative relationship with Rome for years. Like many local rulers, he acted as a client king, allowed to govern under Roman supervision. But when Prasutagus died, Rome changed the arrangement completely. Instead of honoring his kingdom's independence, Roman officials seized Iceni lands and property. Then came an act of brutality that would ignite rebellion across Britain. According to Roman historians, Queen Boudicca was publicly flogged. Her daughters were assaulted by Roman soldiers. Whether every detail is accurate or partly exaggerated by Roman writers, the result was undeniable. Britain erupted in fury. Boudicca emerged as the leader of a massive uprising against Roman rule. Tribes that normally fought one another united behind her. The rebellion spread with terrifying speed. Roman settlements became targets for destruction. First, the rebels attacked Camulodunum. The city was overwhelmed. Buildings burned. Roman colonists were slaughtered. The great temple of Claudius became a final refuge for desperate survivors before it too fell. Then the rebellion moved south, toward Londinium. Chapter 4. The Destruction of Londinium. At that moment, the Roman governor Suetonius Paulinus was far away campaigning in Wales. When news of the rebellion reached him, he rushed eastward toward London. But by the time he arrived, the situation was hopeless. Londinium was rich, crowded, important, but it was defenseless. The governor faced a terrible decision: stand and fight with insufficient troops, or abandon the city completely. He chose survival. Paulinus ordered an evacuation. Anyone capable of leaving was told to flee immediately. Imagine the chaos. Merchants abandoning warehouses, families loading carts, crowds pushing toward the bridge, smoke already rising in the distance. But many people remained behind. The elderly, the sick, the poor, and those unwilling to abandon everything they owned. Then Boudicca's army arrived. What followed was one of the greatest disasters in early British history. Ancient Roman historians describe horrific massacres. Men, Women and children were killed without mercy. Buildings collapsed into flames. Entire streets disappeared beneath fire. Archaeologists today still uncover physical evidence of this destruction. Beneath modern London lies a distinct red layer of burned material dating directly to Boudicca's revolt. Ash, charcoal, burned debris, a scar left behind by the destruction of Roman London. Barely a decade after its founding, Londinium was gone, reduced to ruins. For many cities, that would have been the end, but not for London. Chapter 5. Rome rebuilds the city. Rome crushed Boudicca's rebellion in a decisive battle shortly afterward. The empire had survived, and immediately Roman authorities began rebuilding Londinium. This time, however, they intended to create something far more permanent. The reconstruction happened rapidly. Roman engineers redesigned the city using structured planning rather than chaotic expansion. Straight roads replaced muddy winding paths. Stronger buildings rose from the ashes. Markets reopened. Warehouses expanded. Trade resumed. And soon, Londinium grew larger than before. The Romans understood the city's importance. The Thames crossing made London too valuable to abandon. A permanent military fort was established nearby to guarantee security. Then came public buildings that transformed the settlement into a true Roman city. Bathhouses appeared where citizens gathered socially as much as physically. Temples honored Roman gods. Amphitheaters hosted entertainment and violence. Markets bustled with goods arriving from every corner of the empire. By the 2nd century, Londinium had become the capital of Roman Britain, and it was astonishingly cosmopolitan. Romans from Italy lived beside Britons born locally. Gaulish traders negotiated business near Syrian merchants. African soldiers serving Rome walked the same streets as Celtic craftsmen. For ancient northern Europe, Londinium was remarkably diverse. Latin became the language of administration and commerce. Roman culture shaped everyday life. Citizens wore Roman clothing, used Roman coins, followed Roman laws, and perhaps the greatest symbol of Londinium's success came with the construction of its enormous forum and basilica complex. This was not merely a marketplace, it was one of the largest Roman civic buildings north of the Alps. The forum became the heart of the city. Here, laws were enforced, contracts signed, taxes collected, political power displayed. Londinium was no longer simply a colonial outpost. It had become one of Rome's most important cities in the Northwestern Empire. Chapter 6. The Wall that Shaped London. Around the year 200 AD, the Romans undertook one of the most significant construction projects in London's history. They built a massive defensive wall around the city. The London Wall stretched for nearly 3 miles. It stood several meters high and was built from thick stone, reinforced with towers and gates. For the first time, London possessed permanent defenses. The wall transformed the city psychologically as much as physically. It marked London as a place of wealth and importance worthy of protection, and its influence would last for centuries. Long after Rome disappeared from Britain, future generations continued using the Roman wall as London's primary defensive boundary. Even medieval London followed the same outline first established by Roman engineers. In many ways, the shape of modern central London still reflects decisions made nearly 2,000 years ago. The Romans had unknowingly created the foundation of one of history's greatest cities. Chapter 7. The Fall of Roman London. At its peak, Roman London may have contained more than 50,000 people. For Northern Europe, this was enormous. But empires are fragile things. By the 3rd and 4th centuries, Rome faced mounting crises. Civil wars erupted across the empire. Trade networks weakened, economic inflation spread, foreign invasions increased pressure on the borders. Britain became increasingly difficult to defend, and slowly, Londinium began to decline. Some public buildings fell into disrepair, population numbers shrank, trade slowed. Then, around 410 AD, the Roman Empire effectively abandoned Britain. The Emperor Honorius informed British cities that they must look to their own defences. The Roman legions departed, and they never returned. Without Roman administration, Londinium slowly collapsed. Markets emptied, roads deteriorated, grand buildings crumbled into ruins. Within generations, much of the city was abandoned. Grass grew through stone streets. Nature reclaimed the once great capital of Roman Britain. For a time, it became almost a ghost city beside the Thames. Silent, empty, waiting. Chapter 8. The Legacy of Londinium. And yet, London never truly died. The advantages that first attracted the Romans still existed. The river crossing, the bridge, the trade routes, the access to the sea. Future peoples would recognize the same opportunity. Anglo-Saxons arrived, then Vikings, then Normans. Each rebuilt the city in their own way. But beneath modern London, Roman Londinium still survives. Fragments of Roman walls stand hidden among office buildings. Ancient roads remain buried beneath modern streets. Archaeologists continue uncovering temples, coins, mosaics, and forgotten foundations beneath the city. Even the name survived. London, a direct echo of Londinium. What began as a muddy trading settlement beside a river became one of the most influential cities in human history. A city born from invasion, forged in destruction, and rebuilt through resilience. And it all started with a bridge. Next time, we explore how Roman London vanished into the Dark Ages and how Viking invasions transformed the city forever. If you enjoyed this documentary, subscribe for more deep history videos every week. And let us know in the comments, what ancient city should we explore next?